Good, because I just clicked the button. I didn't even wait for you to answer. We're live on Facebook. It's the Brewgooders episode 48. I can't believe that me and Colin have managed to pull this together for 48 episodes. I'm joined, as you can see, this is not Callum. It's not Callum. It's certainly not Callum. It's not Colin either. This is Michael on my right. Yeah. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Geoff. Thanks for having me.
I met Michael a little while ago. I know you traditionally. You know somebody traditionally. I know you as the artist on a lot of Colin's earlier stuff. That's how I was first introduced to you when I was still coming to conventions and just buying things and being quite nervous and stuff like that. I knew who you were, obviously at the same sort of time I knew who Colin was. But I've got to know you a wee bit more since then. But
that's right. But yeah, me and I used to. What's the word? I knew Colin from college because he was my lecturer when I was studying at doing the computer arts and digital design course back in the day when it used to be called Carnegie College. Since then, we've both had some similarities with comics, and eventually he got me involved with one of the this upcoming project he was working on, which was to mark the anniversary of the Battle at Bannockburn. And he invited me on as the artist. And so that was my first kind of experience of a sort of full-scale comic project. So I feel like I learned quite a lot in that wee project there.
It was a very cool project. I've mentioned that a few times on the podcast that I used the book a lot as a teacher. There's a couple of points in the plot that are parts of the National 3 and National 4 level history. So it's the comics are good. I've got loads of copies because I keep acquiring them from Colin, and it's just quite a good resource for being able to say, right, let's watch. We'll watch Braveheart, and then once we finish Braveheart, we'll fire out Colin's book, and the art's an accessible part of that. To be honest, it's I love that Kiss My Axe panel. That's my favourite thing.
Thanks, but I have to give credit to Colin for that one. There, he advised to include it.
That's good. It's a collaboration, isn't it?
Definitely.
So you're an artist. Do you do writing as well?
As a specialty, not really. But there's been occasion where I've tried to look at how to write a certain scene. And then sometimes I have to kind of research a little bit to see if I'm writing dialogue, I have to kind of get other opinions to see if it does sound natural and that sort of thing. But when it comes to even concepts,
I wrote a short story a couple of weeks ago for a competition, and the dialogue I looked at it this morning, having not really thought about it for ages. Dialogue is hard, and I took part in a competition where you had to get your story written and drawn in a week, so I didn't have that. You say that process where there is a lot of research that goes into even research and practice almost. I don't know if you've done it, but actually reading aloud what you've written to make sure it doesn't sound woeful or cringy or.
There's occasions where I've actually remember many years ago I used to work on a wee webcomic for a bit of practice when it came to practice developing my art skills. And from there, I used that as an opportunity to kind of write dialogue. Looking back on some of the dialogue I put in for it, it was not the strongest. And if I was to go back to it today, I could do a better job.
So what is your previous work then? I've read most of it, to be honest, but I want you to be able to sing your story a wee bit.
Well, back when I was in high school, I used some time when I was there to basically develop my art skills, and from there I ended up doing a few webcomics that I used to post on DeviantArt for just a bit of practice and just to get ideas across. Eventually, I had a sort of webcomic series, which was kind of a sort of ridiculous fan fiction, which featured two different franchises coming together to fight a common enemy. The idea was.
Give me an example. That sounds amazing.
Oh, sorry.
What were they? Give me an example of franchises.
Well, the idea was because I was a very big fan of the Star Fox Nintendo series, and I was also a fan of the toy line Bionicle. And so I thought it would be interesting to see how those two worlds would collide. Eventually, over time, while I was developing the story, I ended up developing original characters from it, and then I've actually even considered developing some other future projects featuring those characters as my own original work.
Well, that's cool. That's totally weird and random, man. It's pretty cool, man.
It definitely was, but it was a time for experimentation and see which ones work and which ones don't.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, since but then after that, I remember just before I met Colin, I was also working on a wee comic, which was pretty much my own version of that old Disney's Robin Hood story. I thought I'd try and recreate it in my own style, but as well with my own, and retell a story based on more information learned about Robin Hood. It was a bit of a challenge, I must admit, because I think again I could have done a bit more research than I could have done. But again, used as an opportunity just to develop my style. At the same time, it was actually a wee story I managed to finish. But since then, I kind of moved on to other projects with Colin and tried other stuff which I've not been. That was out of my comfort zone.
I think you have to go out there, though. That's fair enough. And actually, your work that I enjoy the most at the moment is your H.P. Lovecraft story that you drew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has completely escaped my mind what one it was.
It's okay. It was called Dagon.
It was Dagon. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan. I totally forgot it. But around about the time I read your Dagon, there was another Scottish artist who'd also drawn it, and I probably drew it years apart from each other. But I had become aware of 2 copies of Dagon around about the same time, and I enjoyed yours more. Your art style was something I really appreciated when I was reading it, and I don't know. I've read a lot of Lovecraft, and I've watched a lot of films inspired by, and listened to a lot of audio drama inspired by Lovecraft. And I thought your Dagon was kind of in keeping with my perceptions of Lovecraft, what Lovecraft worlds would look like. So it was pretty cool.
Thank you so much. It was a really fun project to work on. And I think the reason I wanted to also do this particular piece because it was part of my final project at university, and I felt like because everyone knows about and when everyone thinks of H.P. Lovecraft, they usually think of Cthulhu. But I was thinking to myself, they don't really know that much about some of this really early work when I really got them into writing. And apparently, from what I learned, that was the first published piece he worked on.
Oh, was that right? I actually didn't know that.
I think it was it was definitely at the start of the Cthulhu mythos, which he developed. And since then, I've used a really good example of just how I was able to at least tell a heavily detailed short story and translate it into a visual silent novel.
Yeah, that's cool. I love Lovecraft stuff. Sorry, I was having a Lovecraft daydream there. Have you? Some of his early stuff's really good. I don't know where on his and it's interesting that you make the point about most people only really recognizing him for Cthulhu, because actually I find a lot of his more interesting stuff when he doesn't necessarily go down the Cthulhu route. Don't get me wrong, that's all quite incredible stuff, to be honest, but it is a bit barmy, it's a bit weird. My personal favorite is On the Mountains of Madness. That's quite an
a really good story, because I remember reading a comic adaptation of it, and the art style for that one was quite interesting, I must admit.
I've read I've read it, but there's some really interesting. There's an audio drama of it, which is currently my favorite interpretation of it, of the actual story. I know there's been a lot of info, and you see a lot. What's pretty cool is obviously it was written ages ago. It was written in 19-something teen, but I
think it was the 30s, maybe.
Yeah. But when you consider the story and actually just the ongoing sense of dread, I think that permeates that story, is present in quite a lot of movies that I think. I mean, somebody would probably challenge me, but I think guys like John Carpenter and The Thing has I think they owe a lot to just, as I say, that ongoing sense of dread that exists on the Mountains Madness, that abandonment and the isolation that the characters feel and stuff like that.
I have to agree. I think speaking of like John Carpenter's The Thing, I think that was originally based on a British novella called Who Goes There?
Yeah.
But I think those kind of like that book, as well as like The Mountains of Madness, were definitely kind of key influences when he developed The Thing.
Yeah, I think so. I would hope so. Obviously, John Carpenter has done Lovecraftian themed films as well, so that's kind of why I'm like, oh, actually, maybe I want the amateur film critic in me is like, well, I want there to be a link. What else? What have you been working on most recently?
Well, if I can think comic-wise, there's only been a few like short comics I've just briefly worked on, just as one simple comic strips, just for a bit of like fun. Nothing too major, but at the moment, I've been ever since like I finished university, I've had this other wee project on the side, which has been kind of working in progress. However, I've not got any comic pages put together at the moment, but I have been just developing a log line for it. If you'd like to listen to it,
yeah, go for it.
Okay, so hear me out. So as I'm not the best at speeches, but my main story for this wee comic was pretty much oh, give me a second. There we are. Okay, pretty much my comic was going to be about an ex-freedom fighter who turned power-armored mercenary is given a task to prevent an emerging external threat from escalating upon his occupied homeland between two armies. However, would it be better to work with these enemies or to watch them tear each other apart? Pretty much the story itself was kind of like a mixture of like, because as a fan of like Gundam, as well as a big fan of Power Rangers, I was wanting to kind of merge these two elements together. And it was going to be this comic series was going to be like a sort of mixture of the politics and the mechanized narrative of the Gundam series, while including the team-based action of Power Rangers, while all being set in an occupied country divided by two opposing factions. As you can tell, there's quite a lot of political elements to it, and it does sound a bit convoluted, which I'll be honest with you. But this is something I'm being wanted to gradually develop on and reiterate.
That sounds quite cool. I think I'm going to bring him in. Colin's here. I'm going to bring him in, and Colin's going to go, what the feck are you guys talking about? Hi, Colin. You all right?
Hey, folks.
Hello, Colin.
I really enjoy. I read the Power Rangers comic series. I've just stopped because I thought I took a dip in quality in the last couple of months. But I like when they take. When you say that, you mentioned the team-based aspect of, and the it's goofy. Power Rangers is essentially really goofy. It's really corny.
Oh, definitely. I'm well aware of that.
It's I tried to watch a couple of episodes with my youngest son recently. It's actually really cringy as well. But I think if you take the base elements out of it, and I think what the comic, I feel like the comic series has been written by guys who, like our age, who kind of grew up watching it, and then thought, oh, it would be really interesting if you took that idea and played around with it. So, like you say, like things like politics and alternative causes. So I'm told all for this idea of taking that element of that mechanization and that we call a big robot to do a big punching thing, but then have that kind of underlying sophistication, because obviously it's not sophisticated with the Power Rangers TV series. I don't know. Is anyone watching Voltron right now?
I'm watching myself.
I'm doing a Voltron rewatch on Netflix just now, and it's like the most awesome because it's really it's not sophisticated, but it's quite complex. But at the same time, you know, it's about 5 guys who have robots that join together to form a big robot that punches things. Ultimately,
I'm a big fan of the sort of mecha genre, and I've watched the show myself. It's really good, like reimagining of that original 1980s television program.
Yeah, I think late 70s. It's that I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I probably should know that, but I think there's that whole thing about they were filmed in Japan, and then it took a couple of years to then bring the footage over, and then it was edited and.
That's pretty much it. I remember hearing somewhere like, just in regards to Power Rangers, that it was described as the Saved by the Bell American series mixed up with Godzilla stock footage.
Yeah, I think that's fairly apt. I do love it, and I do love the idea that like you're taking again. I've got I don't have a DVD player, but I do have DVDs of the Japanese subtitled episodes of the Japanese series that Power Rangers is based on. It's a completely different thing. It's all really
nice, definitely,
and totally like it rests in things like feudal Japan and things like that. So the idea that an American TV company thought, tell you what, we should cut out all the mysticism and all the complex social interactions between the characters and just make them about teenagers that like summon robots is. But it's gone on 30 years now.
It's still growing strong.
How are you, Colin?
And yeah, listening intently to your conversation about stuff that I know nothing about.
We've been holding the fort, man. That's 15 minutes without you trying to keeping us in the right direction. That's all right. What are you guys drinking just now?
I'm not actually drinking anything.
Well, for me, I'm just drinking a alcohol-free cider of Copperberg.
So you're drinking juice, okay? And Colin's not drinking anything.
It's quite nice, I'll be honest with you. Just saving alcohol for the weekend.
Yeah, okay.
I'm getting my beer delivery and my beer pickup tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I need to pay for
brilliant.
That. I'm drinking I found this in a
problems.
Yeah, we drank. My still, I think it's one of my favourite claim to fame for this whole podcast was that we got to drink the first time they put that in a cask. Me and Colin did. We were at a beer show about this time last year.
I guess so. It must have been.
Yeah. And they had that in cask for the first time, and it's now obviously it's in cans everywhere, but it's in Sainsbury's.
Yeah. Remember when they used to have beer festivals
and comic conventions? Do you remember that?
And oh yeah, wow.
Let's be honest. How many comments are you guys sitting on waiting for the conventions to open up? I'm new to this whole having stuff to sell at conventions thing, and it's pissing me off.
It's giving me an opportunity to kind of build up on like what stuff I could probably produce for the next convention.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got new comics that will take along to the next convention, but I have to say my online sales have been pretty good.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Over lockdown.
That's all right, man. Congrats.
Well done.
Sales have been absolutely abysmal. But yeah, you've been at it a longer time than I have, much longer. So have you got? You said there, Michael, that you've got. It's giving you time to like put stuff together. Have you got? See, you've got this new series that you're kind of you've kind of sold to us there to now. Is that your most recent project, or do you have anything that you're looking forward to showing everybody when it comes to convention time?
I think at the moment that's the only latest thing I've been developing. But once, however, I've been developing a few like illustrations which I've been posting up on social media just to see what people's interests are with it. Mm-hmm. However, I've been really kind of like trying to push myself during this time anyway, just to try and put together like some ideas of how comic covers could look or how the characters could be further developed in terms of visuals.
So I think I would say that was a big part of your. Obviously, I've seen your stands at conventions a number of times. I know Colin shared stands with you in the past. What are key features of your? Because you have your comics, but you mentioned your illustrations as well. What kind of stuff do you draw? What kind of stuff do you enjoy drawing?
Well, for me, what I usually do, I enjoy drawing is like, let's see. I also do quite like illustrating characters like from sci-fi, but also enjoy them drawing characters from like recent popular pop culture, as well as some even from Japanese anime and manga, stuff I've probably never heard of, but at the same time, someone I know like a lot of people are familiar with. And also at the same time, I do quite like doing like illustrations in different styles. Like I did a few illustrations which were done in a very minimalistic poster-esque approach, and even sometimes pixel art style too.
It's interesting. I like that you mentioned that you draw a lot of stuff that you don't really know what you're drawing. I remember me and Colin we were at a convention quite recently. We were at that Capital Sci-Fi Con, and I dropped a weird I dropped a weird line about Guyver. Colin will need to remember. I don't even know if Colin remembers this happening, but I don't know if you know about the. I love the anime series Guyver, and I was chatting to. Why don't I? I'm rubbish with names. I was chatting to a guy who had drawn. He was present at Capital Sci-Fi Con. He does a lot of pictures where I'm doing that a lot because that's how I want to describe it. He does a lot where he draws like I think he draws the person that's put in doing the
Paul Turner. Paul Turner.
Yeah, that sounds like
heavy voodoo art. Yeah, he does the half and half sort of superhero.
Yeah, that is exactly that. So one of my favorite weird kind of Japanese imports into the States is a series from the late 80s and early 90s called Guyver, and one of the sort of infamous elements of this is when they translated it into the American movie. They got Mark Hamill to play a part.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and the DVD cover was that half Mark Hamill and half this Guyver character who's a mechanized armor thing, but it was sort of regarded as a kind of like bargain bin sales ploy because actually Mark Hamill doesn't play the character, the Guyver, and then if you remind me of the guy again who does his art, Paul
Turner.
So Paul Turner. I was chatting to him about the story, and he pulled out a commission where somebody had asked to have half their face done with Guyver. And he's like, I just thought it was interesting. I was like, oh, that's absolutely amazing. He was like, I'm glad you think that because I have no idea what Guyver is. I don't know. I just think it's quite interesting that have you discovered something through that form? I don't know if Colin has a similar kind of. You've been asked to draw something and you haven't known what it was, and then you've actually discovered something that you quite enjoy as a result.
I've been asked to draw Pokemon in the past, and I have no interest in Pokemon.
It's a shame because there's a Pokestop quite close to your house, man.
Well, you know,
it's worth a shot. I'll be honest with you.
I have played Pokemon Go when it first came out, and it didn't work on certain Android operating systems, and my kids were amazed when I was able to hack the file and get it to work on their phones. So that is my interest in Pokemon.
In fairness, I was late to this trend as well.
I managed to do the same thing you did, Colin, with Pokemon Go. I managed to work out using. Obviously, I didn't have any hacking skills, but I did do a lot of googling and worked out. So I was able to play Pokemon Go a couple of weeks before it came out, and I actually enjoyed it. And my claim to fame on Pokemon Go is I was the first person to put a Pokemon in the gym at the Big Dipper in Blackpool.
Nice.
Well done. What an achievement in life that is.
I know. I put it on my CV for my last job application.
Absolutely, you must.
Okay.
So, yeah, nice to see you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Geoff. Thanks very much, Colin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully get you on when your mechanized robot political satirical crazy comic that you're putting together becomes more of a reality. That sounds really, really smart.
Aye, fingers crossed. Hopefully I'll be able to put together someone pretty soon.
Oh, cool. We look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, Bob.
Cheers.
Hi, Colin.
Hey.
I don't know. So I mentioned right at the start of the live stream that we were going to be bringing in comic creators like Michael from and somebody's actually just about to join us, which is amazing because I was a wee bit panicking there that nobody. We're our podcast last week seemed to be quite popular. I was getting quite a lot of folk messaging me and saying they really enjoyed taking part, and also they'd received a bit of interest in our work. So we just kind of thought we would do this and chat about beer and comics. But Colin's not even drinking anything because he's a bit of a Philistine. What have you got ordered for tomorrow?
I've got every one of the Caledonian craft beer merchants bottles from Inner Bay Brewing. So I just said, give me one of everything.
I have also ordered 2 Inner Bays tomorrow. I've just ordered 2 more Opals because they're it's my favourite beer of the moment. And I actually I emailed Inner Bay to ask if it would become, because I'm a total geek and probably quite dislikable. But I did message Inner Bay and asked if they were going to just make that part of their regular line of beers, because it has been built. They did build it initially, I think, as a limited edition beer, but I think it's absolutely stunning. And Inner Bay got back to me and were saying they're looking into it. They feel it might be a seasonal entry. And it is a very summery beer, and it might not sell as well kind of in colder season.
Yeah, perhaps. But I just thought I'd support a local business.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also ordered I ordered the, when you order a beer because of its can or its name. I've ordered the is it Arbor, or no, it might be Overtone. I've got a beer called Stay the Fuck at Home, I think it's called.
Oh yeah,
So I've ordered that, and I managed to get my wife to drink a sour last week. And she really enjoyed it. So I'm doing that annoying thing that all husbands do when they realise that they get a sniff that their wife might enjoy their hobby. So I bought I'll need to put it up. I'll probably put it up at the weekend. But an Iron Brew sour.
Really? Wow.
So I think that might be quite good. Yeah. That's enough beer chat, isn't it? I've got David sitting very, very patiently, and he's just done that thing where he's lifted his head because he was doing something else and realised that he's about to get brought in. So I'm going to bring in David and get him. I'm going to put him on the spot a wee bit with who he is and what he does.
Excellent.
Hey, boss.
Hey. Hi, guys. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. How are you?
How are you?
Cool. So
we're all good.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So my first question for the uninitiated, obviously we've had the odd chat on social media, but can you tell us who we are?
Yeah, I'm the owner-operator of Correct Handed Comics, and we put out graphic novels, one-shots, ongoing series, 4-issue miniseries, mostly dealing with genres different than superhero stuff that you would find in normal comic books. I do have some comic book superhero aspecty stuff, but for the most part, my ongoing series, The Offspring, is an action suspense thriller, kind of like along the same lines of, like, say, the TV show Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that kind of thing. The characters do have superpowers, but I'm going by the rule: no fights, no tights on that one. So they fight demons, and they fight supernatural, and they fight each other. So that's the ongoing series that I have. And a lot of my other series deal with, like, classic movie monsters, like The Loved Ones, which is actually the children of classic movie monsters who go to hunt their parents. The one that I have that is the most superhero-y is called Evolution Utero, and it's a 4-issue miniseries. You can find it in trade also, about a woman who is the worst kind of person you would ever want to be around, and she ends up getting impregnated with a superhero fetus. So the baby, soon-to-be baby, it has superpowers, and the superpowers start to show before the baby is even born. So this mother has to figure out, one, how to birth a superhero baby, which doesn't even happen in the first the 4-issue miniseries. I'm doing like a Back to the Future to be continued type thing on that one. But she kind of figures out how she wants to handle having a superhero baby and how that, or fetus, and how that changes her outlook on life.
That doesn't sound very superhero-y.
Superhero aspects.
Yeah. I'm jesting. It sounds a bit like The Fly, actually. Body invasive horror. So what you said, no, like, it's interesting. What I noted there when you were giving us, like, who you were, was that you that no superhero thing was quite was something you kind of ran with at the start. The no superhero, no fights, no tights thing, which is a beautiful nod to Smallville, by the way.
Well, I came up with no fight. Well, I came up with the idea, like I didn't want to have them in super costumes. I didn't want them to have nicknames. I came up with that in 1989. So many years before
millions, I think.
Yeah, before it became an actual thing. No fights, no tights. Before that became an actual phrase. So I would like to say that I invented it without anybody knowing it in my bedroom as a 15-year-old kid.
I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna put that in the show notes that we that you. Yeah. It's interesting. What my point that I was going to make was that it's interesting that you felt the need to tell us that now. I think a lot of people assume when they find out that we do comics and beer podcasting that like superheroes are quite an integral part of our podcast. But I don't know if Colin would agree. I would argue they're not really. I know that Colin's not. You're not anti-superhero, Colin, but you're really not into them. Whereas
I'm really not into them at all. I just I find them very samey. You know, you read one superhero comic and the same issues and storylines crop up, you know, a few months later with a different superhero. And it's just been done to death. You know, we're talking about how many years of Batman? 80 years or something?
Yeah, it's coming up, isn't it? Quite soon, actually. There's
anyway, and Superman, you know, and I find it really difficult to see how they can make something new happen there, you know, and I see lots of young creators coming up with ideas for superheroes, but they're never really new. They're just something that's been done before. Though I have never heard of a fetus superhero impregnated.
All right, hey,
yeah, that's new to me.
It makes me more like a body horror film rather than
totally.
As the story goes on, yeah, I kind of threw the kitchen sink at that one. There's time travel. There's superhero saves and all that kind of stuff. But again, nobody ever puts on any boots or capes or anything like that. And in fact, the lead character doesn't really want to do it. She's over it. She doesn't want to do it. That she's finding her fetus, her baby that's growing inside of her, is the one that kind of takes over and says, "Nope, we're doing it." And so it's I appreciate that you've never heard that before. I tried to do my own spin on stuff, and that's one that I think that I found a pretty unique niche to be able to have superpowers, but not in the way that you think that they would be.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. So yeah, I'm having a little look on your, because I know you have some work available on Comixology. I'm really interested. I assume it's The Offspring your main series, or the series that you've done the most work on so far?
Yeah, The Offspring is the ongoing series. I just put out issue 11 last month, and issue 12 is coming out at the end of this month. Fingers crossed, in case anything else weird happens in the next couple of weeks. The Offspring is my ongoing series that I plan on getting issue 12 out this month, and then issue 13 out by the end of August. And then it's going to be like season 1. So I'm taking a break from The Offspring for a few months to be able to focus on some other books that I want to do, and then get back to issue 14, hopefully in January of 2021. So a little bit of time off for The Offspring, give me a chance to be able to get some other books and some other ideas that I have out. Issue 13 really wraps up the storyline from issue 1 all the way to 13, but then brings up a whole bunch of other issues that these kids who already have enough issues need to try to figure out. It really, from issue 13, the story starts. It's a weird story to begin with. I'm a weird dude. It's a weird series, but it really starts to get even weirder, where each character is going to have their own, like in the first run, each character had their own two-issue storyline to be able to really flesh out the characters, to really know who they are. I'm going to continue that trend to be able to start the story with issue 14, 15, and then each character gets their own little 2-issue story arc, where all the other characters are there also helping them, but it's really about maybe fleshing out how these characters are growing and how they're changing throughout. And then the end of season 1 is, like I said, issue 13 is coming out in August, is bonkers banana splits. And I'm hoping that people like it.
So I'm intrigued. This is the story with the young of the kind of classic horror characters. Yeah.
This is actually a different one. That's the Loved Ones.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The Loved Ones.
I thought that was when you were talking.
Yeah, 100 issue.
My bad.
100-page plus story where there's like a Van Helsing type monster hunter character, and he finds children, monster children. So Frankenstein's monster's child, Dracula's child, witch child, Wolfman's child, and he raises them and he kidnaps them essentially and raises them as his own.
Wow.
As they grow up into their teens, something happens. There's a catalyst to the whole story where these three monster children decide to hunt their real parents. Not search for, not find them. Yes, find them and search for them, but hunt their parents. And for some it ends well. For some it does not. And we actually get to meet a few more monster children along the way. So while the story is an enclosed story and it finishes up after the 100+ pages, it's definitely opened up for more with these characters that I found. That's one of the few books that I haven't written. A buddy of mine wrote. I came with a concept. A buddy of mine and wrote it, and he did an amazing job really trying to flesh out these characters and give each of them their own distinct personality, but also caring about the things that happen to them. And I was surprised at how much characterization we were able to get in 100+ pages.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds really, really intriguing.
That's right up your street, Colin. Eh?
Yeah.
Is that one of our very early episodes? You looked at it, the Mary Shelley Frankenstein comic that you spoke really highly of. It's pretty awesome that you can. It's pretty awesome that you've been able to go back to these sort of stories and pull out something new and spin it in a different direction.
Yeah, we definitely took some liberties on the mythos, but it's essentially, the characters you read from the books and from like Nosferatu type Dracula. The suave guy, we meet him in a different time in his life where he's not too worried about being suave, and I thought that was a nice twist by the writer Brian Menard. Who wrote it from my concept, and we introduced the Dracula adult character in a very different way than what we've seen Dracula or vampires before, and he is the vampire Dracula character is like the main villain in the Loved Ones, and definitely is the one that's like a lot of monsters bent on world domination or just crazy manic killing sprees. And how these four characters deal with their nurture versus nature type story, where they were raised by a monster hunter. Their parents are actually monsters, and how do they come to grips with those two dichotomies, those two completely different mindsets of growing up, being told that what you are is not what you should be, and how you adjust yourself accordingly.
Goodness, I'm interested to know what you read yourself.
As far as comic books go, I am a superhero guy. I do like superheroes. I tend to pick up. I'm in a very isolated area. I live in upstate New York, in the States, and the comic book shops are about an hour and a half away. So when I do get to one of the cities in any direction that's an hour and a half away, I tend to pick up a Superman book or a Justice League book. Try to pick up something a little bit different. I'll try to find something, since I'm an indie guy, I'll try to find something that's an indie book and pick it up. But for the most part, I've always liked superheroes. But just haven't, like you said, I think that unless I can come up with a really, really interesting twist, I'm not going to do superheroes, because the big boys are already doing it, and they've been doing it for 80 years, like you said. So I'm not going to be able to do it better than they did. So I have those different genres that I like to put my little twist on. So horror or action or suspense or I'm saying that out loud, but one of my next one-shots is actually going to be superhero, capes and boots and flying and superpowers and all that stuff. But I think I have an interesting twist on it that is something that's never been in my short 45 years that I've never seen in a comic book of this type. So so I'm hoping that when it comes out, people like it. It's called I Won't Stop, and it is a superhero that is pushed to his complete physical and mental and emotional limits, and how he and how the other superheroes around him and how the world reacts to his reaction of this thing that happened to him. So I don't want to give away too much, but I think it's a good one. I think it's going to be fun.
That's really intriguing as well, man. Yeah, thank you for joining us. That's really, really cool that you just kind of stopped by and chat away. We could do this forever, to be honest. I'm quite happy to chat. I love one of my favorite things about having comic creators on is just we're idea guys, or you guys are idea guys. Like I say we. I've got one book that's just come out and I'm already saying we. But I don't want to call loads of stuff out, and obviously you have as well. But I love chatting to comic creators because you're chatting to folk who are just full of ideas, and those ideas are usually much more dynamic and more exciting than my ideas. So it's quite cool that
our brains never stop. We'll do that. Our brains will never stop. It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
Absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'll be sitting home watching TV with my wife, and I'll just kind of get up and go, "That's it." And I'll get up and I grab my thing, and she like, "Just sit down." I'm like, no, I got to get it out before I forget it. I got to get it out. I got to write it down. So she's like, "Do you want me to pause the Netflix movie that we're watching?" I'm like, "No. I got the story. I know what they're doing over there at Netflix. Let me write down my thing, and I'll be right back with you in a second."
That's amazing, man. I've got on the wee bar here, I've got the Comixology link for you. Is there a more appropriate link to find access to your stuff?
Yeah, my Comixology stuff, I wanted to, because Comixology is such a broad amount of comic books. I only have the first 4 issues of The Offspring on Comixology. Yeah. I wanted to see how they did, and if they got lost in the shuffle. And I unfortunately do think with so many comics they have on there, it kind of got lost in the shuffle on Comixology. So primarily where I sell most of my books is, oddly enough, through Amazon. So there are links to, on my website, correcthandedcomics.com. There's links to every single book that I have available on Amazon. There's digital and there's print. And my books are also on lulu.com as trades. So you can find the first 2 trades of The Offspring, issues 1 through 4, and then issues 5 through 10 of The Offspring in trade. The Loved Ones, the trade of Evolution Euro, is on there. And once I'm done with issue 13 of The Offspring, I'm going to have issues 11, 12, and 13. And then I have another one-shot called Shady Lady that I'm going to connect to that trade. So I'm going to have a bunch of trades, hopefully here by the end of some, even more than I already do, by the end of summer, to be able to peddle my wares at cons when cons come back.
So do you do many cons at the moment? I mean, well, have you done many?
Yeah, it's touch and go. There are, like I said, I'm in such a rural place up here in upstate New York that there are good cons here. A lot of times, as a teacher, the cons are right in the middle of the school year. So it's very tricky for me to go to cons. I have done them, and I try to go to all the cons to be able to support other indie creators that are there, and to meet creators that they have at the cons for little snippets of advice, little tidbits of knowledge that they have. But my plan is, as 2001 creeps closer here, to really dive into selling books at cons. My main goal when I first started this was to have enough quality content to be able to say that I have enough quality content. And I think by issue 13, I think I'll be there to be able to say that if this book isn't your thing, I've got this book. If that book isn't your thing, I have this book. If that book isn't your thing, I have this book. So, trying to do stories that I really like, that other people will like also. And cons, I think, are a great way to meet people. Even when I just go, I think it's a great way to communicate with other creators. And instead of just selling books, which is always the goal, is to make those connections with people, to be able to know what they're about, and to be able to know why they're creating their books, or why they're comic book fans to begin with. And then the selling of the books, sometimes, not all of them, sometimes becomes secondary to just making those connections. I've met people at cons that are amazing people that I still keep in contact with today that I've never met anywhere else except for in cons. And for me, that's what it's all about.
Totally. Yeah. I think we're the kind of same with the podcast. We've made quite a lot of really awesome mates and acquaintances. I know Colin, you've done the cons for a couple of years now, so you've got like Colin is like oh, I've got this friend that's coming to join us for a podcast next week, and it ends up being like the former editor of Commander Comics. You're like awesome. Sitting there with comics royalty, like
oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Scotland's comic scene and being like, hi.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys do, because as a creator, getting the word out there a lot, especially now the cons aren't happening right now, being able to come on with you guys, and you guys being so gracious, to be able to say, just drop on in whenever you want, to be able to talk about your book, and to be able to make those connections with people who do what you guys do has been amazing. I've been, since January, I've been able to make meet so many people in the industry and make friends with so many people in the industry that I never would have met before, if maybe this pandemic thing that stinks wouldn't have happened. So if there are any pros to it, it's being able to communicate with each other like this that I don't think it would have really happened before for us. So it's amazing.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for joining us. We'll maybe get you on later on in our time and just chat about where you're at with season 2 and things like that, and just one of the what's I think has been quite fascinating about this whole lockdown process, and the fact that me and Colin usually sit in a room together to do these podcasts, and we haven't been able to do that now for about, I think, 8 or 9 podcasts now, is that we could have yourself back on in about 6 months, and hopefully when things have kind of reached some sort of normality, we're all going to have it's going to be a completely different kind of experience for everyone. Chat. So we'll definitely get you on closer to the end of the year, if that sounds right.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. I've been able to. I have 2 children and a wife, and teaching from a teacher here in the States. So teaching from home has been an interesting experience, to say the least. I found myself when it first started, I'm like, oh great, I'll be able to grade some papers and watch a movie, but that's not what's happening. It is a nonstop from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. Parents calling, grading papers, talking with kids, Google Meets with kids. It's been interesting. I won't say bad because it hasn't been bad, but it's definitely been an interesting thing. So so finding the time now to be able to talk to you guys, especially, and for me it's the afternoon. For me it's the middle of the afternoon. Yeah. You guys, you're obviously a little later than I am. So to be able to sit and be able to have time to be able to talk to you guys is awesome.
You're also talking to 2 teachers, which is quite funny. This happened last week as well, so we totally understand your 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
insanity that seems to exist within this thing.
Yeah, and I'm an elementary school art teacher, so it's funny that being able to have kindergartners on a Google Meet is a challenge in and of itself. When you're actually physically with them in the classroom, it's a challenge. The best thing about it sometimes is I was just with them today, probably about 2 hours ago, and I had like 25, 26 kids in one kindergartners in one Google Meet, and they're just chatting away. And during the lesson, I say, okay, mute yourself. So they're muted and they're still talking, even though I can't hear a word they're saying. And then when I'm done with the lesson, I'll say, okay, if you guys want to unmute yourselves so you guys can crosstalk to each other, and because they haven't really seen each other in the last 2 or 3 months. The second that I say that, the microphone goes on, and it's and I can't understand the word they're saying, but they're saying it and they're having a great time. So it's definitely been challenging, but entertaining and rewarding on some level too, to know that we can do it this way if we have to.
Yeah, that's cool.
I wouldn't want to do this forever.
No.
But if we have to, it's doable.
Yeah, we do it. I suppose we do what we have to. It's crazy times, and it's interesting that you're having so many. I'm laughing to myself because you're having so many folk. I think I've got a friend who is a union rep who quite publicly admitted that current statistics in Scotland suggest that only 40% of pupils are engaged with the education process in Scotland at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's feeling like that for me. I'm getting very few people in my online classes.
You're a teacher also?
Yeah, my in a college, so it's mostly adults, but or late teens
You're getting better
adults.
at it.
But they've got their own families and kids and homework for their kids to do, and
Yeah.
so they've got their own set of problems.
Yeah. Have you guys opened up at all, or are you still pretty much in lockdown?
We're pretty much locked down. Yeah,
I work in pupil support in Scotland, so I'm a teacher. My actual official title is teacher of nurture, but there's not many of us. But I'm manning one of West Fife's high school hubs. So we're opened up for a dozen of sort of my area, Scotland's most vulnerable young people. So there is teaching going on, but I say quite low numbers. It's quite interesting for us because eyes are on us somewhat because we are the I think what we're doing is kind of and how and the challenges we face are the ones that we're being used almost like the test space for when schools open up a wee bit more. Like what challenges we face are kind of like a micro environment compared to what the being high school will face if we try and welcome back loads of young people at the same time. So
yeah, are you guys? I'm sorry, I'm talking more socio-political than we are comics or beer or anything. But are you guys? I have been noticing the protests in Europe, and we clearly, I don't know if you guys have been able to see it, but the protests happening here in the United States
absolutely.
that have luckily become less violent. Americans were crazy, but they've become less violent in the last couple of days. But we've all but stopped talking about the COVID because of all of the protests, and it's frustrating. It's one of those times where the media, like everybody talks about the media this, the media that, and I'm a big fan of the media. I think they keep some of the politicians in line. We need them. They're there to be able to make sure they're asking, even if they're asking the wrong questions, asking questions is a good thing. But the problem that we've had up here, I can't speak for all of America, but up here, the biggest problem we've had is they've stopped talking about COVID altogether. So we don't know where I think we're level 2 opened up, but we don't know. I don't know if that has helped or hurt, or if the numbers have grown, or if just because it hasn't been being reported up here, they're more focused on the protesting, which is a good thing. The protests are there for a positive reason. Divide your time or multiply your time. Don't divide it. I guess.
I think I don't know. We'll have to bring us very quite soon with guys now sitting in the studio waiting to join us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. But I think this is a really important conversation to have. So I think the perspective out here, obviously, we have been following what's been going on, and there have yesterday everybody, I think most people in Scotland participated in Blackout Tuesday, and not yesterday, the day before, sorry, and we are aware, and there's also been protests in here. I think because we are across the ocean and we're a wee bit separated from what's going on, I have noticed that the conversation has been the challenge between wanting to protest and the concerns surrounding COVID, which is crazy. And I saw today there was a lot of things kind of getting explored across social media that was along the lines of how to protest and how to support the cause while staying safe, which is just crazy times because what happened.
Hopefully, all this protesting for hopefully positive change isn't going to make COVID even crazier than it was to begin with. I do notice a lot of protesters with masks on and trying to have social distance in the middle of a protest, but at least a lot of them have masks on, probably to protect themselves and to protect their own anonymity. But at least they're there for a good cause. But hopefully, it won't. When fall comes, it won't make it even worse than it already was. So, and I have one of my books, my one shots, called Shady Lady, kind of deals with some of these social issues that we here in the States have been having over the last, well, the 250 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah.
but really over the last 3 or 4 years, dealing with some of these things that have been happening in social media and with diversity and all that kind of stuff. So if your listeners are into that sort of thing, check it out. Shaggy Lady.
That's cool. I will put it in the show notes, man. Thank you so much for joining us. And
cheers, David.
Yeah, we really just enjoy chatting. I think so. It's good to have you on. And as I say, we'll get you on later on again. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll speak to you later.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Cheers. Yeah. So who we got waiting in the wings?
We've got a guy, Ramsey Jr. He's still smiling away. I'm going to just add him in. So here we go. Here he is. And he actually did note, hi guy. He noted in our wee private chat that he was enjoying the conversation, which is good. How are you? You all right?
I'm good, man. I can't complain. I woke up alive and healthy, so I'm not going to complain about that.
Absolutely. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Prince George's County, Maryland.
Wow, that's amazing. That's what's cool about doing this. Like, obviously, we're on social media, and we'll just fire out the who wants to come and chat to us. And obviously, you've picked up, you've answered the call. So, but it's quite incredible that we've been able to just have people from all over the world. You know,
definitely.
So, take it away. Who are you?
So my name is Ramsey Jr. I'm the host of the podcast Some Guy's Opinion, mental health advocate, supporter of Black Lives Matter. I'm also the author of the hopefully not, I don't want to say soon to be published, but the in progress comic book Depression Kills the Monster Within. So that's a little bit about me. What I do.
That's cool. Well, that's incredible.
So how did you get into this comics thing? How have you come about writing this new book?
First and foremost, I'm a fan of just comic books and superheroes and the art form. I think that's how anybody starts out. You're like a fan. You're just like, wow, I wish I could do that one day. And when you're a kid, you're kind of just like, oh, you probably have to go to do all this stuff. You have to be able to draw and do all these different things. And you get older, you're just like, man, I can write. I can do different stuff. I really like to keep it going. And then it kind of just first I was doing the podcast, and I always had ideas for writing. It's funny because my comic book started out as an idea for a music video. It was just, I was drawing one day, I'd be like, man, this would be a really good music video. I was listening to this sort of one of the sadder song while I was jogging. It just came on, it was a rock song, and I was like, man, I could see this being about depression, and it'd be this music video. And then, I went home, was taking a shower, and for some reason, great ideas come in the shower. It's I just sitting there here. I was like, what if this was a book? And so I went in, I grabbed a beer, and I was just like, what would it look like? What would it be like? And I just started typing and writing. And I looked, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I look over, it was midnight. And I looked I had these pages of notes and stories. And I just was like, okay, I've got something here. Let me formulate this into a story, which is originally what it was going to be. It was just going to be a story. And through doing the podcast, I met my illustrator, Vonix Art. She's really talented. And we talked on the show. We really hit it off. And we kind of became friends. Where we just, after the show had ended, we were still, over the next few days, just messaging each other back and forth. And I sort of just, when I first published the book, I published a chapter for free on Wattpad, so people can just go read those chapters. There's 3 of them out there. And I was just like, hey, what do you think of this? And she was like, this is so good, it should be a comic book. And I was something that I'd never really even fathomed before. I was like, comic book. I was like, oh, I was just kind of writing this story. And she's like, yeah, it should be a comic book. And she's like, not trying to force your hand, but I do draw. So I was just like, okay. I was like, okay. So, and then we kind of just, worked out a deal and a partnership. And then we just been working on it ever since. And I'm hoping it can, get out soon. I mean, I'm definitely have been nonstop writing. We're going to release some concept art for it very soon. you know, to keep people interested, give you sort of like a little preview of what's going on.
Yeah.
The first 3 chapters, they're on Wattpad for free. So like if anyone wants an idea of what the book is about, you can get the first 3 chapters for free. You can just go on there and read them. If it interests you, then, you know, stay tuned for the comic book when we release it. But yeah, definitely.
So mental health's the main kind of, and you mentioned right at the start, sort of mental health and sort of advocating Black Lives Matters and that as well. Are they? Does your story touch on both?
It doesn't touch directly on Black Lives Matter. Definitely. And like, let me be clear. When I say like advocate, I don't want it to be confused with advocates. I'm just advocating for the fact that I support Black Lives Matter. Yeah, but mental health is definitely something that I've personally dealt with and like worked in that field. So the book definitely, I mean, the main character is African American, like, so in that aspect it is a Black character. The book is definitely more so, I think, focusing on it's a fictional world, and in this world emotions are a source of power. So different people, they'll have like a base emotion and they'll get abilities based off of that base emotion. However, in this world, depression can be kind of like very much so because it's more than just an emotion. It's a mental illness, but it's a mental illness that directly, pretty much, they kind of like affects your emotions. It can like kind of like intertwine with each other. So when I was writing this book, I thought about, well, what is depression? What would that look like visually? What would it be like? And I thought of a depression demon. And so essentially the story, to give you guys sort of like a brief summary of how it starts, the story starts with Edward White, his friend Leo, best friends. They're both at the self-defense academy. Leo, his emotion is confidence. Which allows him to manipulate fire. So he's like very confident. He's very proud of himself. You know, he can like shoot flames and everything. And he's actually showing his sister, you know, all the stuff he can do with his fire. And he burns his sister and like her vividly scars on the face on accident. And he just can't forgive himself. It sends him to this depressive state, which causes a depression demon to form. And eventually that depression demon ends up consuming his life and his body. And where Edward comes in the story is when they first meet, Edward's like, I gotta stop this. I can't let this thing use Leo's body. And they have a fight, which Edward loses badly. Like, he gets completely beat down, overpowered. And before the depression demon leaves, he basically says all the things he's going to do wrong in the world, all the evil he's going to cause, and then he flies off. And like Edward's thinking about these things, and then he looks up, and now his own depression demon is formed. And that's just sort of how, like, that's kind of how the story starts, and it goes from there. And so it's definitely like, I think I've had people read the first chapters. I've gotten really like positive feedback about people saying you really capture what it's like to deal with depression. It does touch on, you know, suicidal thoughts at one point. So, you know, it's definitely like, and as far as just, I think the biggest thing for me when making the story was to make sure it wasn't a story that was pandering. It was a story that had these themes, but first and foremost, whenever I make the story, it's about it being a good story. Like the depression and things like that just naturally sort of flowed from there. And I think that for me, that was the best way to go, because what I wanted to do was put these things in a way where people who maybe have never dealt with that or aren't sure what it's like, they could see it and get it in an understandable and digestible manner. So I think like that was definitely for me, like, is why I wanted to go this route with this story. And I think definitely being visual is going to drive home those points more. So I'm like super excited to like be working on this and like keep it going forward.
That's quite exciting, because it's really exciting how you say about like in that sort of visual form, the comics do something quite fascinating. Like when you were chatting away, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh my goodness, like even like the use of color and things like that can just completely like. It creates completely new dimension. Well, it creates quite a clear dimension to a story, but that maybe not necessarily lost on written page, but it creates a completely new dynamic, which is it sounds like it's quite an important kind of story. It's got quite important themes that need to be chatting. Conversations need to happen in order to, in my opinion, need to happen to
absolutely.
To bring
I think. that's probably my favorite thing about like comic book superheroes and all that stuff is you take sort of this guy who's flying through the air in tights and punching bad guys and everything, but then you can add the depth to it. Like you can add this sort of message there and these themes that can be explored. And a lot of times, like I think it's a way for kids to really like, especially the kids, to see that and to read it and to like, you know, they're able to get it in sort of a, they're able to see something in sort of a, because it's like through fiction and might be like their favorite superhero getting crashed through a wall. They're able to see like, you know, these larger than life characters in their minds deal with everyday problems. Like you're able to see like, you know, wow, he's got super strength, but he's not sure he can save them. He's not confident. I'm not confident. I can relate to that. You see like, you know, a character like, you know, like I think just, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but like with the things that Edward is able to do and overcome and find, especially when his like his abilities are realized, which definitely look forward to that next comic book because he discovers his powers and it is one of the coolest things in the world. Like, but you're able to see sort of this guy who can almost appear like who can both be vulnerable but also so strong. And I think a lot of people, you know, can relate to that. They can relate to like, you know, there were times where I felt very strong. There were times where I felt weak. There were times where I was sad, where I was angry. And it really just really explores the depth of different emotions and like how they can manifest themselves. Like, you know, I'll give you guys a little bit of a tidbit. One of the villains that will come out this book will in fact his base emotion will be happiness.
Goodness.
So you know, definitely look out for that because it will be a thing that where people are just like, because I've mentioned to some people that like, yeah, it's like, so it's like, come on, give us something like, who's a villain? I'm just like, all right, I will tell you this, there is a villain. It's like, what's the emotion? And I was like, I'll let y'all guess. And they're like, anger, da da da. And I'm just like, it's happiness. You're like, how is it happiness? I'm just like, that's all I'm saying. That's all y'all get. It's happiness.
Yeah, what a great twist. Wow.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that you touch on as well the sort of the vulnerabilities that people feel in their lives and that question about strength and weakness that exists there, because actually, if you're somebody that is struggling with depression, and is challenged by depression, but is able to function and overcome aspects of that of that, which, you know, is crippling for many people. You know, that puts a completely different dynamic on concepts of strength. You know, we traditionally, I think I've been reading a lot of Grant Morrison's memoirs recently, but he talks a lot about how Marvel, that's how Marvel total captured the imagination, and you know, because everybody was in the 40s, 50s, late 50s, early 60s. Everybody was kind of still doing prototypes of like Supermans and Batmans, like big guys. But if you think about the more enduring and endearing characters, particularly in Marvel, and you could argue that DC eventually did this as well, or had done this from the beginning. But what makes Peter Parker so amazing is his vulnerabilities. You know, he's trying to save the world, he's trying to save the day, but he's also trying to do everything else. And I think and I think the strength of Peter Parker sort of magnifies the strength of Spider-Man to an extent, and that's like a huge thing. I think it's quite incredible what you're putting forward, this idea of mental health, and I think there's a really fascinating discussion to be had about what is real strength, you know, mental versus physical, all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, having happiness as a villain is the whole concept round on its head as well, because obviously happiness is seen as the ultimate goal. I think for a lot of people it's trying to find their happy status quo, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's interesting when I like delved into the topic of emotions. It was interesting to sort of just look at them. It was interesting to sort of like flip on them, looking, because like the one thing when I was like thinking of Leo and I was writing that part was like, yeah, like a confident guy sort of just seen in this paragon. But I really wanted to drive home the point that no matter how big, strong, powerful someone may appear, like they are still vulnerable and they have their own struggles you're not aware of. Because that's like, you know, we all do this where we look at someone like, man, if I could be taller, if I could be stronger, if I could be this, that, if I had this, what he has, you know, if I could do, you know, we all naturally compare ourselves to other people because it's just like, man, they seem like they got it all together. And like, I'll never forget this because it was I did an extra year in college when I did like, you know, 5, got my degree, so proud of that. Took me a little bit longer though, but one of the things that was funny to me was I'll never forget this. My degree was in social work, and the class that was behind me I was now in, and they were just like, man, you know, I'm so nervous, I'm so worried. And she was talking, I was like, why? And she was like, because, you know, that last class, they just seemed like, you know, they just had it together and they knew what they wanted to do. And I laughed so hard. And I laughed. And the reason I laughed so hard was not just because I was in that class, because like I knew all the people in that class. And I'm like, let me be clear. There is not an adult in that class that knew what they wanted, that had their stuff together. Like they were panicked, they were worried. They might have had a plan, but like trust me when I tell you, they had their own stuff that you weren't aware of. And like so, when I made the character Leo, I think what it drove home to me and what I wanted it to represent was that it doesn't matter who you are. Like depression can happen to anybody. Don't think, well, like it's because I see this a lot when like people who have a lot of money or they have a lot of fame, they come out and they're just like, yeah, you know, I've been depressed. Like I've been having depressive thoughts and everything. And it's like, well, what does he have to be depressed about? It's like, that's not how it works. You know, like it was like sort of to drive home the point, man. You can seem like you have the whole world, but you know, trauma and, you know, things changing, like there's always the flip side of that coin. I think happiness as the villain drives home that, as a villain, you know, drives home that point too. Mm-hmm. That when you have, like, you know, someone can be happy, but also can be broken inside, and, you know, and they can see that. I mean, like, rest in peace to like a lot of the people who've like given these amazing speeches and then later like passed away due to suicide. You know, there's a very famous speech that I forget the gentleman's name, but you can look it up. But it's a very famous speech, and afterwards they talk about how like he spoke to this valedictorian class. He was like a writer, and he spoke to them, and afterwards he committed suicide. He suicided, and his whole speech was about following your dreams, you know, believing that you could do anything. It was just this inspiring speech. And then yet, even then, after he had said all that to these kids, you know, he still passed away. And it was just kind of like, it's a very like sobering moment to like think about those experiences, especially when I'm writing. Like I take all of those, and as much as I can, try to like balance that while still writing an amazing story, and like kind of let the themes and everything flow out of it naturally.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's really exciting. So where are you with regards to the practicalities of having it released? Is it being drawn? It's
in the very early stages. That's one of the reasons why I always say, like, man, check it out on Wattpad. The first 2 chapters are there. Read it. Because it's definitely in the more early stages of releasing. I mean, you can always go check out Vonnick's art as well to see, like, you know, what her artistry has looked like as far as what you can look forward to from it. But it's, you know, and I still release I'll still release like quotes from it, from the book, different like chapters. They're usually out of context, but it's just different things from either like new characters you haven't seen yet, old characters that you haven't known, that sort of just like they hint towards things and it kind of gives you an idea of what's coming, but you still have to read it to find out fully what it means. So like I'll release little stuff like that, but it's definitely in the early stages. And I think when we do release it, it will probably be you know, we're still deciding. I think it'll end up probably being chapter by chapter, as opposed to all at once. That way you guys can, like, you know, get a chapter, read it, digest it, and then you can come back and read it again. But it's, you know, it's in the beginning stages. So I don't want to like stress my illustrator out by saying it's coming out in 3 months. She's like, why would you say that? But it is coming, and I will do everything in my power to like make sure that it comes out as soon as possible. Like, believe me, I'm writing and I'm working on it every day or every other day as much as I'm possibly can. Like, this will be released, and when it does, believe me, I will be making the rounds again to say it's here. I've been talking about it. Please read it. Like, so yeah.
Well, we hope you would join us there at that point as well, man. That'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll check out the stuff that's out just now, and then revisit it in months to come.
Yeah.
See where you're at. Yeah.
We knew the stories when they were on
I thought about that. There's gonna be someone who's just like, I'm a real fan. I was there back when he was just on Wattpad and there weren't pictures.
Okay, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It was a lot of fun.
There you go. Colin, that was amazing. That was good fun.
Lots of intriguing stuff.
We went all over the place this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean,
boy.
Michael started off talking about Power Rangers, then you came on with David, and then we went all over the place with human.
Yeah, emotions everywhere.
And protests and mental health. And
Indeed, yeah. We cover everything here.
I didn't mean to once. You don't look funny, Colin. That was just.
All right. Is that funny, peculiar, or funny?
Yeah.
Ha
I was trying to make you laugh at the start of the. I've got all these banners here. I'm actually just looking for one that says Brewgooders, but I've lost it all in. There we go.
That's us.
Yeah. I think that's us. If you got anything,
so we're about done, or are we anything else we're going to cover today? Or?
I don't know. If you got anything you want to chat about?
I don't know. What you've been reading? Been reading anything?
I have. I've been reading the 77.
Of course you have.
I've been really enjoying that. I've been reading. Oh, I've actually got it to hand, so I'll bring it over. I've been reading it. Yeah, there it is. Thanks, man.
The 77.
It's one of the first books in a long time that I've recognised names and been like, oh my goodness, we talked to him. I'm enjoying it.
All right, yeah.
I know that you. Am I right in thinking that you know Peter Milligan? Did I make that up?
I don't know. I'm a big fan.
No, there we go. Well, I know you talked to him before. I grabbed this from from my local comic book shop, the Little Shop of Heroes.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty decent. It's good fun. It's called New Romancer.
Yeah, it's like Byron or something. Or
yeah, she accidentally digitally creates Lord Byron as part of a.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember reading about this one because I do, like I said, I quite like Peter Milligan's writing. So it's one I'd heard of but I've never read.
No, I'll give it to you when I'm finished. I'm enjoying it just now though, and also I got a couple of comic books from the Little Shop of Heroes because things are opening back up again, Diamond are distributing again, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
How about yourself?
I got Bog Bodies, written by Declan Shalvey, who, interestingly, is usually the artist on a lot of things.
Oh, cool.
But this time it's illustrated by Gavin Fullerton. So I'd read Declan was at Dunfermline Comic Con last year. I think he was at Glasgow as well. And he did kind of talk that he was writing something, his own creator-own thing, and this is what it was. So I'd gotten a copy of the Ash Can, sort of black and white kind of preview of the first few pages quite some time ago, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to get this when it comes out. So I put it on pre-order at Little Shop of Heroes, and it came out this week, so I managed to get it. And it's so Declan's Irish, and his story is set in Ireland, and it's kind of gangsters and stuff, and getting rid of bodies in the Irish bogs.
Yeah, you've talked to me about this before. I think you've been looking forward to it, haven't you? So
I have been looking forward to this one, and it certainly got a bit of a twist in it that I didn't expect from reading, the Ashcan or reading what I had about the story. But yeah, it does start off as a kind of gangster story. And there's a couple of guys who have to get rid of a body, but things aren't quite what they first seem. And they go out to this Irish bog in the middle of the night to kind of dump the body, but things turn around, and there's a lot of kind of Shenanigans.
That sounds really good. That sounds like the kind of stuff I'd watch on telly anyway. That sounds really good.
I think it could make it an interesting wee kind of, one-off story or something. Yeah. It's fairly short and fairly quick to read.
Cool.
Which doesn't detract from it at all. It's really quite entertaining, but it does have a bit of a twist, which you probably don't see coming at all.
Nice. I'll need to check it out. Awesome. Cool. Please, in the comments and all that sort of stuff, tell us what we should be checking out and what you have been reading and stuff like that. We haven't got a plan for next week yet, but I've really enjoyed today, Colin. So thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't come until a bit later.
No, you were fine. Me and Michael power ranged our way through it. So
you certainly did.
Well, have a nice evening. I'll speak to you
all
soon.
Right. You too. Cheers, folks.